Okay, hi everybody. Um, okay, this video is gonna be a story. It's gonna be kind of a long story. Um, and it's a family story. Uh, when I was about 5 years old, 1967, we were living in Richmond, California, in what was known as the projects. It was a housing project for low-income people. My older sister and my older brother both lived with us, and my mom was a single mom. And she worked most of the time. She was a waitress, and uh, I think for a time she uh, worked at the shipping yard there, too. Um, at the time of the incident that I'm going to tell you about, um, I don't know if I think she was working and my older sister was just babysitting us. And my older brother and I don't really have a memory of this incident that occurred, but my older sister has a very clear memory of it. Um, Give me 1 second. I've got to pause. Okay, so uh, my sister, the story she told us just a few years ago. The reason why this subject came up is because I was asking her about an incident that happened after this main incident. I had asked her about somebody trying to break into our house when I was 5 years old, and how at the top of the stairs I was looking down and I could see their arm reaching into the mail slot. At that time, the mail slots were in the doors, and I could see an arm reaching into the mail slot, and it was coming up, like up, to unlock the door. And I thought, at the time, looking down at that, I thought, God, they have a long arm. And so anyway, I had asked her about that. And her memory of that incident is also different. So the first incident of that day, this is what she has related to us, is that we were all out in the middle of the projects. In the middle of all of these homes, there was a field for all the kids to play. It was just a regular field. There was no playground equipment or anything like that. But imagine it's 1967 and there is no internet. There's nothing like that. All the kids are outside playing. They're riding their bikes around. They're playing football. They're just running around in this field. And so anyway, we were all out there, and she said that first they heard a buzzing noise. And when they looked up, they saw a saucer-shaped craft, and it was coming down. All of the kids scattered, and this thing landed in the field. It sat there for a few minutes. Everybody was on the edge of the field. Some were hiding. Some had went and got their parents out, and then it took off. That was the end of it, or so they thought. Later that night, the incident I remember is that I was sleeping and I heard a noise, and I ran. Our bedroom was at the top of the stairs, and I got out of bed. I went to the top of the stairs and I looked down, and I saw this person's hand coming through the mail slot and trying to reach up to the doorknob. And that's where my memory ends. That's all I remember about that. I remember being very afraid that that person was going to unlock the door, and that the idea that their arm was really long to be able to do that. My brother has no memory at all of any of this. I don't know if it's because he's traumatized or I don't, I don't want to put anything on that. I don't want to insinuate something about that because I don't know why he doesn't have a memory of it at all. My sister said that, number one, we didn't have a stairway, so there was no way I could be upstairs looking down. She said that we were living in one story, and I don't remember that about that place. I remember it being a staircase going up and our bedrooms being up at the top of the stairs. She also said that that person breaking in was not a person, that was a creature, some kind of an entity or something, and she had grabbed me and my brother. The reason why I'm not saying their names is because I don't think either one of them would want to be mentioned. I know for sure that my sister would not want her name out there. She didn't even want to talk about this when it was first brought up because she's married to somebody who is prominent in a certain community, and this would look very bad. So, and so I have to respect that. I'm just glad that she filled us in on what she knew. Okay, so anyway, she grabbed my brother and I and took us into the kitchen, pulled us underneath the table, and pulled the tablecloth down enough to try to hide us. And she said that's where her memory ends for this. So I don't know what really happened with that. Now, fast forward to 1980, and my husband and I were just getting settled in bed, and he had his arm around my waist, and he said, "What is that noise?" And I asked him, "What noise?" And he said, "That buzzing." And so I listened. We got real quiet, and I listened, and it sounded like the buzzing that used to come off of my grandfather's electric fence. Every once in a while, you could hear this bzzz that would go down the fence. It's a real weird noise. But it's a buzzing, and that's what it sounded like. And I thought, do they have electric fences out there? And I was referring to the field in the back of the apartment complex we lived in. And he said, "I don't know." And so I got up on my knees, and the window was directly behind our headboard. So I opened the curtain, and as soon as I opened the curtain, there was this thing that was so big that you could only see a portion of the size of this thing, of what it was. And there were pulsating lights going across the bottom of it. And I knew what it was immediately, and I started screaming. And it brings chills sometimes because just thinking about the size of this, because the field was huge. And thinking about this thing and the way it took up, I mean, the whole space, there was nothing else in my window but this thing. And it was just a portion of it. And so I was screaming, and my husband jumped up, and he pulled the curtain back, and he looked out, and just a fraction of a second later, this thing goes from 0 to like thousands of miles away. I mean, you could see it as it looked like a star. It was gone. I mean, you could see, because I followed it with my eyes, and I could see it just turned into a point of light. So, and I thought about that for days. I talked to the neighbors, and one of the neighbor ladies from downstairs, the next day, we were talking about it, and she said she heard the buzzing, but she never thought anything about it. She thought it was fences or something. Now, we're going to fast forward again. And this is between the years 1989 to 1992. I had went back to school. I wanted to finish my degree. And just get an education. I was living in this little house. This is when this started. There was this little house we lived in Stockton, California, and there were other houses attached to it. It was like there were 2 other houses attached to it, but this man who was renting these places out, he had done all the work. So you couldn't call it a triplex, really, because he did it all by hand himself. It didn't look like a triplex. It looked like an L with these little houses separated. They were like little cabins. And there was a time that I started having dreams, and these dreams were terrible. They were horrific. I mean, they were so bad that it caused me a lot of problems where I wouldn't want to go to sleep. There was one night that I had jumped off the couch and went to run out the door. And when I ran out the door, the neighbor caught me. He was just coming in to his place, and he caught me. And when he caught me, I had blood all over my hand. And the reason why I had blood all over my hand, I guess, is because I had pulled, when I was trying to escape whatever it was that I was getting away from, I had pulled one of my nails away from my finger. And so there was blood all over. And so he helped me wrap it up, and he stayed with me for a couple of hours, actually. And these dreams went on for a couple of years. So they did ease up. I went and I saw a therapist, and he made some suggestions to me. And at that time, there were no suggestions really of medication. So it was just about, it was all mental work. And so I thought we were done with the dreams. And then I moved into a mobile home. And I started having a relationship with somebody I really cared about. And the dreams were pretty much done. There were a couple of incidents after that I'm not going to talk about right now. But the thing that concerned me the most while we were in that mobile home is that while we were researching some of the stuff about dreams and the mixed up with the UFO stuff, because I was really worried about all of it at that time. We came across some information that said that there are certain marks on people that they have when they're abducted. Well, my youngest daughter, I noticed that she had some markings on her that weren't there before. And it concerned me, and I talked to my partner about it, and he said, well, let's just keep an eye on her and see what happens. And so we did keep an eye on her, and things seemed to be okay. And then, in fact, things seemed to be really, really good. And then one day we woke up, and my daughter, she had come into the living room. I was making breakfast, and my partner said, what happened to your leg? And I looked over, and I noticed she turned around. She turned to look at the back of her leg, I guess because it was still hurting. And there was a long mark. It had to have been, I mean, she was a little girl at the time. It had to have been 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches long. And it was bright red. And it looked like her leg had been cut open. And then somehow stitched back together, but there were no stitches. You know, I mean, it was like a healed scar, but it was still red. And I asked her, what happened? And she said, I don't know. And I mean, she was 5. She was around 5 years old at that time. Was she? Yeah, she was 6. She was 6 years old, because that was in '89. So we didn't have an answer for this. I ended up moving out of there. I thought maybe changing locations might help. So we did move into a new place, and then I did start having a few dreams. They weren't as bad as the other dreams were, but they were different. And there was this one in particular, and this is the very last dream I had, that affected me the way it did. And in it, I was laying in my bed, and I couldn't move, and I had opened my eyes, and I felt this being standing over me. And I couldn't see anyone there. And I was really trying to see someone, but they weren't there. But I could hear them in my head. And she said, and it sounded like a she. She said, look, and she indicated to the wall. And I don't know how she indicated. I just know that in my head, it was an indication towards the wall. And when I looked at the wall, it was a white wall. And when I looked at the white wall, a symbol started coming up. And one of them, it was a circle with a squiggly line on the outside of it. And she said, you need to get back to your center. And I wasn't really sure what that meant. When I actually broke out of that, I started screaming because I was terrified, but at the same time, I had this idea that my whole life was getting ready to change, and it did. And it was me who made those changes. I had been working for an employer who was barely paying me anything for 50 hours of work a day, and I wasn't treated very well at the time. So I left and took 2 other employees with me. And so things changed. But I didn't really understand what my center was. I knew that the indication on it, I knew what the indication of it meant, but I didn't understand the full breadth of it. And maybe at some time I can make a later video and relate this information. But this was 30 years ago. Yeah, more than 30 years ago. Um, so I mean, live and learn, right? So we ended up moving to Arkansas, my youngest daughter and I, and we came here for a different life. We knew that the lifestyle was different, that it was nothing like Stockton, and that's true. It's very true. Um, for me, it was a culture shock. And I mean, there are good things and there are bad things about this place, but I mean, here I do feel safe. Um, but I will tell you, over the years that I've been here, uh, we have had a lot of encounters, my daughter and I both, and then there have been times where other people, 4 or 5 people, have seen some of the things that we have. And some of the things that we have seen, thankfully not experienced, I'm putting that in air quotes, because experienced means, to me, being an experiencer means either being abducted or having some kind of interaction with these things, whatever it is that they are. But we have actually visually seen things, and quite a few of them. And to me, it seems more than would be normal. You know, I mean, normally you would think that you would see something like that once or twice in your lifetime, but there's been a lot of it. So, and I've heard and read and watched videos that these kind of experiences run in families. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't done the research. I just know how it's affected me, how it has changed me. I think without those first experiences, I would be a different person. And I can't say that it was so much traumatic as it was just making you think outside of what is normally taught to us. Because these aren't things that, I mean, I know when I was younger, mentioning something like this would bring a lot of ridicule. And now it's not so much that it's commonplace, it's that it's more widely accepted because so many people have experienced it. And we know that it is happening. We know that people are having experiences. We know those experiences are very diverse. And that everybody takes something different away from their experience. So, what I know at this point in time is that I'm a worrier. And so I worry a lot about what this means for humanity. I was watching this video a couple of months ago, and they were talking about Jimmy Carter had been in some kind of a meeting with somebody who had been informing him of some of the going-ons of the whole UFO thing. And when he came out of that meeting, he had put his head on the desk and was just weeping. And to me, that's not a good sign. Uh, that sounds kind of scary to me. So I guess we just take away from that what we will. But to me, it seems like there are only a few options that we are being visited the way we are. And one would be just because we were a biological experiment that they keep checking up on. We're being experimented on, you know, just because they happen to find us. But I think that these beings have been around for thousands of years. You can see a lot of the rock carvings and paintings that people did, you know, a couple thousand years ago, and it depicts beings in that art. So I think they've been around a long time, and maybe they planted us here, or maybe we were bred for a certain purpose. And I don't want to think that, and because I don't like the idea that our will is not our own free will. The idea of free will is a very big one with me. I like to think that I have free will. But the way our civilization has developed, I question that sometimes, because our free will is pretty much dictated by certain things. We have certain elements within our civilization that controls us, and one of those things is money. We're the only species on this planet who has to pay to live, and that's true. We're the only species on the planet that pays to live. We pay for food, we pay for the roof over our heads, but we're the only species that does that. And it seems like for people who don't have, or who are in poverty, who don't have a lot of money, suffer quite a bit. And it's not just suffering health-wise, but it's suffering socially also. We penalize those people who don't have money. And that comes in various forms. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. We're all adults here. Okay, so this was my story for tonight. I'm sorry it took me so long to post. I'm very self-conscious when it comes to making videos, so I have to work up the courage to do this. So I apologize for that. Hopefully I can make the next video sooner. Thank you for watching. Bye.